And thirdly, what are the effects of having ego? The moment you have ego, the immediate effect you have is it creates a conflict or friction with the world. There's instant conflict with the world, and the moment you create a conflict with the world, and that conflict or friction creates disharmony within and disharmony without. Not only it disturbs you, it disturbs everything around you. It's like a bull in a china shop. Remember, letting loose a bull in a china shop, it's going to make a mess of itself and the situation around it. It's going to destroy everything. So the moment you have ego, it's going to create a conflict within, it's going to create disharmony within, and create a disharmony outside. So it is not wrong to say, therefore, the more ego you have, the greater the conflict with the world. You're not wrong to say so. And furthermore, what happens when you have ego is you want the world to feed your ego. You have an opinion of yourself and you want the world to fit into that. And you want the world to, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. The world doesn't care about it. And the world doesn't care about your own created ego, you will be left to suffer in your own sorrow and suffering, self-misery, self-inflicted sorrow and suffering. But the moment there is an absence of that, the absence of that ego instantly creates, in fact, you become the embodiment of joy and happiness. You become the very source, you become the very bundle of joy. A classic example of that is a child. A child has no ego at all. And the moment you see a child, even if it's a stranger's child, with permission, you want to pluck the cheek of the child, give a kiss, and you want to pick up the child, isn't it? Because there's no ego at all, no ahankar. So look at the two extremities. The moment you have ego, it creates extreme conflict with the world. The moment you have no ego, you become the very source of bundle of joy, where the world is drawn because you become the very embodiment of joy. Now, each one of us have to examine ourselves. How close am I to a child, and how far away am I from the child? And the moment you have ego, nobody will help you. You will not get any help. In fact, God itself is edged out. Forget anybody else, isn't it? No help, nothing will come to you. No help will come. So you are creating an island of yourself for yourself. And that is not a pleasant place to be in. It's the most miserable place. And it is such a terrible state to be in. And the more you hold on to it, the more you will suffer. Yes, Hariji, you had something to clarify?
When you say you will suffer or you will feel happy, what does that you mean? That itself is an ego, is it not?
No. See, that's why I clarified in the beginning. When I went on to the second question onwards, I said the second, third, and fourth are answering from a relative standpoint, not from an absolute standpoint. So relative standpoint, we are taking, it's the individual. That is Hariji. Who is Hari? Hari is the individual. So whether your experiences are blissful or whether your experiences in life are bitter. So the bitter or bliss is interaction between you and the world, isn't it? Let's say the world doesn't meet to your expectations, or the world, you are able to relate with the world with whatever it has to offer. So whether you create a heaven or hell within, is the interaction between you and the world. And what that interaction creates depends on whether you are interacting the world with ego, which is with expectations, or just trying to harmonize with the world. So the you here means the individual. You don't have to take it from an absolute standpoint. It's from a relative
But
standpoint.
that when you say individual, it is ego.
No, I'm not. See,
Because we cannot differentiate between ego and individual.
now, if I say Hari, do I mean to say Hari is ego? From what standpoint?
Even from the relative standpoint, the moment I see you as an individual, then there is an element of I see you as an object.
Now, you are again talking from an absolute standpoint. You must be very clear with the standpoints. When you say, I still see you as the object and not the subject, I still see you separate from the totality, you're talking from an absolute standpoint. And many people talk from an absolute standpoint. In spiritual parlance, in spiritual classrooms, people take the absolute standpoint because it becomes very poetic and very pedantic. It's very nice, very flowery. You feel very elated when you use those terms and talk from that standpoint. And it's very good for lecturing also. So any ideas of lecturing, Hariji, you can keep that in mind.
No. I am not good in lecturing at all. You know.
I would differ there, but anyway, never mind. Now, so I think you will have to look at it from a relative standpoint, because it is the ego, it is individual. You can't call individual an ego. You call individual an ego from an absolute standpoint. That's why I set it right in the very first and question itself. So there has to be that clarity. Otherwise, there will be constant confusion.
Okay.
See, because we say happiness. What is happiness? Happiness is nothing but no agitations. No agitations.
Yeah.
Isn't it? A state of mind where you're not agitated. Now, what causes agitation? We said it's your own ego that causes agitation. Isn't it? It's the conflict with the world. The more the ego, the greater the conflict, the greater the agitation. So once you approach it from that angle, I don't think there should be any confusion. Okay, Ji.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, Setu Ji.
Can we call individual Jiva?
Yeah. In fact, the individual is nothing but Jiva.
Okay.
It's another term for individuality, which is ego. Right. Yes, Sudhakar Garu.
How to deal with the ego of the people? I get confused whether I have got the ego or the people with whom I am contacting, they have got the ego. I'm really confused. And sometimes it so happens, I get fed up, and at the times of argument and at the times of discourses, I tell them, okay, Baba, you're right. Then what they say, how can I be right? They go to such an extent, they always wanted to say they are right. And sometimes I say, okay, you are right. How can I be right? I am not right. They are carried away in that mood. They want to just argue. So in such a situation, when it comes like that, how to deal with the people. You are dealing with the people who have got a lot of
Yes.
egos in this world, in this materialistic world, when we are into so many fields, and we get confused whether we have got the ego or whether they have got the ego, and how to it is a confused situation at all.
I can
How to evaluate that?
Yeah. In fact, every individual has ego. As I've just
Yeah.
mentioned a little
Yes.
earlier, everyone has ego, and it is our ego that triggers the ego in others. Remember that. If I interact the world with an ego, that triggers the ego in the other person. So there is a clash of egos thereafter. But if I don't present myself egoistically, whatever the ego the other person has, it remains subdued. Like you can always, what do you call that? You can always trigger, isn't it?
No, I'm not. You see, even if I just subdue myself and tell them, you're right, okay, I'm sorry, I'm maybe wrong. They go to such an extent, they tell, how am I right? I'm not right. Even to that extent also they go with their ego. How to deal with the people of that type, I mean to say.
You know them very well. They are best to be left alone. So you say namaskar to them, and even if it required, fall at their feet. Namaskar, Shashtanga namaskar, you do, no problem. There's nothing you can do, sir. It's impossible. You just have to appeal, and so if you keep this principle, what triggers the ego in others is my own egoistic notion. So if I deal with the world from a standpoint of ego, it is only going to create conflict. So if I minimize my ego, if I liquidate my ego to the lowest possible extent,
Yes, correct.
let that person have an ego, but I'm not triggering it. It's like I'm not creating a spark where there's a fuel. I just need a spark and there's a fuel. It's a huge conflagration, a huge fire. It'll burn things down, everything down. So how humble, how unassuming can you be?
But one other thing is also there, sir. In best of the relationships I have seen, many people, best of the relations, they love each other, and so many things happen. But when once they get a bad impression due to some small instance, that relationship is totally broken, and whatever you say in the right manner, they will take in a wrong manner at all. I would say they don't accept your goodness or your, I would say your feeling behind that, and it goes in so wrong manner. And even if you want to tell something good for them, also they are not in a position to accept. And once that mood has come into the mind, they don't go back. What is the weakness of the people? I mean, say, what is the weakness? I don't understand. Even if he wants to do something good also, he won't be able to realize that I am trying to do something good. I have come across many situations like this in my life, and I try to be silent.
Undoubtedly, in fact, undoubtedly, all of us go through that experience where many people tend to take or hold on to a quality, and they go about defining the personality. So they start judging you not by what you are, by taking one or two aspects of you. That's a biggest problem people suffer in relationships. It's because you're holding on to a part, you're holding on to a quality and not the personality. The person may be a gem of a person, but he may have a very annoying quality. So as far as our perceptions are concerned, we can't do much about others. But as far as our perceptions are concerned, what we can do is the quality to, how do you arrest this wrong relationship or getting trapped in this weakness of trying to glorify a quality to be a personality? What are we told? The question is, how do we conquer this weakness of glorifying the quality to be the personality? It's a weakness which destroys relationships. Harish, could you capture this question for me, please? How do you conquer this weakness of glorifying the quality to be the personality, which goes about destroying the relationships? Because what you're ending up doing is you're defining the personality by that quality. Oh, that is what he is. He did that, that is what he is or she is. And you will only identify with that particular aspect. And how do you conquer that? Gayatri Ma has answered it beautifully. As it is rightly said, the quality you got to practice is you hate the sin, but not the sinner. You learn to separate the quality from the personality. It's not easy, but you must understand that that's what the truth is. So what we do, we're camouflaging the personality with the quality. We're just superimposing the quality on the person. And we only view and judge the person from that perspective, from that quality alone. We don't see anything other than that. I'm blindfolded. And that's not fair. And in fact, you're not being fair to the other person, isn't it? So therefore, we have said, you hate the sin, but not the sinner. You hate the quality, but not the personality. So at least from our perception, we can be conscious. Don't be carried away with moments. Like there is a saying, the weather. Like we say, there is a weather and the climate, isn't it? Weather is temporary. Climate is that which is permanent. Like on a hot sunny day, you can have a brief downpour. That's possible. That's the weather, but that's not the climate. The climate is the long permanent thing. So go with the climate of the person, not the weather, which is the moods, the fluctuations, the temporal aspect. Okay, sir. But you can't change. At best, with your wisdom, you can appeal, you can influence with your aura. At best, you can try that and leave it, and perhaps sense or reason prevails. But if one still wants to hold on to an emotion, you can't do much. None can do much. You can't do much. All right, sir? Okay. Yeah, Vijay Raghavanji.
Guruji, may I share something? In this regard, I'm reminded of what normally is the dictum in corporate life when we have debates or discussions. So the general dictum is that please stick to the issue and don't get involved with the issue. The moment somebody says owns the issue and says it, any negation to that point triggers a very heavy, violent reaction by the person because he's already owned that whatever he said. And the moment he loses his head and then ego surfaces or becomes Vishwarup, the other person gets provoked and he also stops behaving sanely. So at the end of the day, it will become a clash of two egos instead of the subject. So, I mean, the general dictum is stick to the issue, not, bring yourself into it. And if somebody disagrees with you, he's not insulting you, he's not agreeing with your point. I mean, whether it's somewhere in that area or not, I don't fully understand what's being discussed.
Very true. In fact, and it's not the clash of views that creates friction, the clash of egos. You can have a different view. It's not necessarily my view is the right view, but it's the clash of egos that creates conflict, not the clash of views. It's not the style of functioning. It's not the style of operating that creates conflict. But the moment the ego comes in, it spoils it all. So you can live your way, I can live my way, but not necessarily that my living is the only way. The moment you start imposing that, that's ego, and that's not acceptable. That gets rejected, isn't it? Very right, very right. I think Shilama has said something. Some persons take everything negatively and it impacts adversely around. How do you deal with it? Continue to be good in your attitude. Just because they are negative, that doesn't necessarily mean you should have any mental hatred towards it. As much as possible, you are positive. And if your emotions are under check, as far as you're concerned, you're not affected by it. That's the thing. At best, what you can do is you can control your emotions. And what is the springboard of your relationship with the world? Always be mindful of that. What is the springboard? Am I dealing with the world with positivity or negativity? Just because the world throws negativity at me doesn't necessarily mean it brings the worst out of me, isn't it? I can bring the best out of myself. So as long as your springboard is that your emotions are checked, you're always positive, and you radiate that peace around wherever you go, you go about diffusing than creating situations, or being an instrument for further creation of a conflict. If I can diffuse it, why not with my attitude? So let your aura influence the other. Let your positivity influence the negativity in others. Then their negativity influence your positivity.
Okay.
Not
Sometimes-
easy, but that you have no much choice, because you only can do yourself. You can't change the world, can we?
We can't.
Sorry, Ma, you were saying something?
Yeah, we can't change the world. It is very difficult to ask others to change.
Not difficult, impossible.
Okay.
Only thing I would say, because Swami Ramatirtha says reforming the world is like straightening a dog's tail, he says. You will have reformed it, but then it's a matter of time. It comes back to where it was, isn't it? So leave the world. That is its nature. Respect it, accept it. And if I continue to be good, your goodness will not go in vain. All I will say, once goodness will not go in vain. And also your goodness will create an atmosphere where you have retained your peace and sanity. See, what matters is, am I peaceful and happy in any relationship? Don't ever believe your peace and happiness is dependent on others. It is not dependent on others. The moment you put your peace and happiness on others, then you have no proprietary on it. Forget it. You will never have it. You will never have ownership. The only way you will have ownership is by believing that it is in my hand. It is not in others' hands.
Yeah.
So let the springboard of goodness and positivity emanate from you, and let it influence others' thinking. If you say, sir, it's not working, I would say carry on. How long? For lifelong, because it's ultimately you're doing good to yourself. Because you are reveling in peace and happiness. Disregard the world. You carry on yourself, you are in peace and bliss. Why are you bothered of others? Don't be bothered. Let them be. If they want to sulk, let them sulk. If they want to carry an albatross around their neck, let them carry an albatross on their neck. That is their attitude. That's their life. Let them live that life. I don't want to be sulking. I don't want to be in that mindset. I want to be a radiance of joy and bliss and happiness. Let me radiate that. Why should I be influenced by others? Let me be the symbol of joy. Like Krishna, what was Lord Krishna's life? Unimaginable. He was born in a prison. The moment he was born, he was separated from his mother. His uncle was hell-bent on killing right through his life, or his early childhood, right throughout. He had to deal with demons and rakshasas and whatnot. And yet you find Lord Krishna was full of fun and cheer and mischief and frolic. So you can borrow that little bit of mischief and fun from Lord Krishna. Please, let us all take that mischief and fun, and let's spread that. We have an obligation to spread that joy and happiness in the world, isn't it?
Sure.
There's a beautiful poem which says, I think Ella Wheeler Wilcox, I think he writes a poem In that poem, there's a phrase which says, laugh and the world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone, he says. Nobody is going to join you weeping if you're weeping. You weep alone. But you laugh, the whole world will come and laugh with you. Party and the world will join, fast and the world goes by. I am fasting. Can you all come and fast with me tonight? Okay, Guruji. Good luck. Nobody will come. Even the core team, nobody will come and fast with me. But if I'm having a party, everybody will come. Not even the core team, everybody will come. Sir, Corona has come down. When can we gather, sir? We're looking for parties. So let that spirit, Shilama, let our goodness radiate and influence and change the world. Remember, the onus is on you. Don't blame them. The onus is on you to influence them. And don't be influenced by them. All right. Wonderful. So, Annapurnama, okay, va? Very good. Ma, your smile is infectious, ma.
Actually, your words, last words were very beautiful, Guruji. Hari Om. So positive, so motivating, inspiring. In the context of ego, I was remembering about a funny face. Just a few seconds, just one minute.
Please.
There is an, it may amount, I mean, there is an elderly person in our family WhatsApp group. He's close to 80. But ego, we know him to be a little bit egoistic, and he calls himself a banda person. And he gets very annoyed if he doesn't get likes or comments for his repetitive posts. So he says people think I have a lot of time, but I care for people. That's why I keep sending messages and all that. So because we feel it is childish. You were saying like child doesn't have ego. He is like very, we consider it to be very childish, and we can't, but because he's an elderly person, sometimes he exits the group and all, and we don't we're not very happy about it. So we have to necessarily keep feeding his ego. What to do? I mean, just thought of sharing, that's all.
Wonderful. See, what a beautiful attitude to have if you are able to be mature and see the childishness in others. See, if you are able to see that childish ego and childishness, and even if it means you pat their ego just to make them feel comfortable. Shilama, you grow to such extent that you're able to even feed their ego, so that you become good in their books because you have won over their hearts, isn't it? What does it go rather than treating it as a challenge? Okay, he has an ego. Why don't I fan it a little bit? Let me fan it a little bit. And now, I'm not going to become any less
harmless, maybe.
Absolutely. In fact, you've made good friends, because who doesn't want to hear good about themselves? Let's say somebody has actually put on weight. He has not been exercising past 3 weeks. Somebody has put on weight, and you meet them after a while and you say, hey, you've lost some weight, even though that morning only you saw the weighing scale which shows the reality. Still you will feel happy because somebody is talking good about you, isn't it? So even if you have to feed it, no harm. No, you're able to manage relationships better. Yes, ma.
Thank you, Guruji.
Yes, ma. And Subramanian sir, you had something to say?
No, nothing of that, Guruji. But I only thought, if we feed a person's ego, are we not doing disservice to the person in the long run? It may be okay just as an icebreaker, just to have the person in good humor and all that. But if that goes on and the person expects that and all that, I think we are being more of a foe than a friend to the person.
Correct.
So we need to draw the line.
Correct. No, more of an icebreaker. That's about all. As you rightly summed it up, is just trying to get into the good book so that you are able to work, sustain, or just create that relationship, a working relationship.
That's I heard somewhere, I read somewhere, Guruji,
Hmm.
that your presence speaks so eloquently that I don't hear your words. So in communication, words may be a small percentage of communication only. So when the way we present, the way we are actually perceived by the person concerned, as an egoistic person or as a non-egoistic person, as Asmita, the opposite of ego is Asmita, as Asmita person or an Ahankara person, that would create such a climate in the person, not the weather, the climate, that the person would respond appropriately. A snake doesn't bite everybody. A very poisonous snake also, when a sage is passing, they say it does nothing to him at all. There is the instance of Ramana Maharshi. He was there in the cave and then nothing happened to him at all. So it all depends on how we are inside.
Correct.
That creates the the relationship with the world.
Correct.
Initially, for some bridge building and all, it's okay, but then in the long run, one need to be authentic. I feel.
Which a guru is, in real
Yes.
sense, getting to how can one annihilate ego. That's when we get to the real crux, the real thing. Okay. Before I get to that, Tinkima is a little concerned of the concept of losing weight and commenting. Yes, ma.
So, as you were mentioning that it's okay to fan someone's ego. Now, if I can see that somebody has not lost weight or in fact may have put on a little bit, is it okay to say, yes, you've lost weight? I could also just say you're looking good and leave it at that. Or why even bring up the subject?
I just passingly, I said an example. Don't scrutinize it so much. I just passingly said, I will think 10 times next time giving an example. As a casually, I said, who wouldn't want to be praised? In that sense, I said, ma. But I think you're right in the analysis.
Carrying further from what Sir just said, Subramaniam Sir just said, that, fanning the ego. And, I think everybody recognizes when you are just fanning the ego and when you're being honest.
Yeah.
And being authentic, isn't that more important?
It is.
If fanning my ego, then I would not trust that person. So I'm trying to build a relationship. Trust is lost. Then where is the relationship? That's my feeling. I don't know right or wrong.
I don't think you're wrong at all. In fact, on a lighter note, I just took an example, but I think you're very right. What sustains relationship is to be a true friend, a true benefactor, is when you're genuinely interested in the interest of the person. And you may have to speak the truth at times, but you don't mean to intend to hurt that person. You may obviously convey that with a genuine intention to help him out, isn't it? That secures a relationship ultimately.
That's what
yeah. Yes, ma'am. Agree with you. Perfect, ma'am. Yes. Hariji, we will listen to Hariji after that. He is profusely nodding his head, Tinkima. So you will have to deal with Hariji now.
Achha. Yeah. Yes, Harish ji. Hari Om.
You have to unmute yourself, sir.
Guruji, I am sure you said Hariji.
No, I said Hariji. Then I was so carried away with you nodding the head, disagreeing to what Tinkima said. So therefore I said, please, let's conclude with that. Any comments there?
I did have a comment, but I don't know. I think you've said it so eloquently, I shouldn't comment now. My comment was much earlier, because I really thought one could paraphrase this whole thing, philosophically speaking, from what you had said earlier. A lot of the problems come because we tend to make a value judgment. And invariably, a value judgment is made from a black and white kind of perspective. It's made from what is really an absolute standpoint. And we forget that we are all far away from that absoluteness, and we are really working in a relative world. So really, none of these absolute concepts will really work. So whenever we make these value judgments, it's fraught with the possibility that it will never work. Yeah. So the best thing is to realize, and when we talk from the relative standpoint, what is the biggest difficulty is that human beings by nature like a binary situation. It's either good or bad. It's either 1 or 0. It's either plus or minus. We are not comfortable dealing with shades of gray. We are more comfortable dealing with black and white, right? So the moment we realize that everything is not a zero-sum game, these problems start reducing. Now, when you say, I'm fanning the person's ego, you're saying that person has got ego, I don't, relatively to him, which itself is a negation of the fact. You know, so the point is, it's not a question of who fans who. It's a question of realizing that life is not zero sum. If you have ego, it doesn't mean I don't have ego. If you are rich, it doesn't mean I am poor. I mean, we can take this to any extent. A lot of the problems only arise because when I perceive you to be rich, I see myself as poor. Or when I see you to be poor, I perceive myself as rich. You know, it's only because we cannot accept that life is not a zero-sum game. I think that was what I thought was the philosophical content of what you said of relative and absolute, and then brought it down to whatever else.
Yes, I'm happy to announce Haresh will be having an exclusive session. Please register for the session. It will be announced the details at the end of the class. I am enrolling myself for that. Harishji, can I please?
I am muting myself for the next.
No, wonderfully summed up, Harishji. Wonderfully summed up. Beautiful, beautiful.